Hi. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing all right, just hanging in there on this Monday afternoon or
Happy,
Monday
happy,
evening, excuse me.
happy Monday. Like I
Yes,
hope
yes, happy Monday.
it's interesting, yeah. I'm like I can't hear you, and I realized that my volume was all the way down.
It's okay. Don't show your age on live. It's all right. Don't do that.
Wow, dang.
Nah, it's all love. I'm wondering for the people who don't know, should I give it to them again?
Sir.
Should I give it to them again?
We don't.
Okay, yeah, I think you sure?
No, I don't. Listen. I am comfortable with whatever you like to do. And so you can. I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know that it's absolutely necessary.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna get this jumping up the right way. Stauna, Michael Jordan, it's your favorite, right?
My dad.
Let's get this going because you got to start a lineup of accolades right now. So listen, she is the co-founder of Voices Inc. She is a board member of I Hold the Key Inc. She is a member of the Society of Human Resource Management. She is a member of the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources. She is a member of the American Ballet Theater Junior League. She is a member of the Opera Guild. She is a member of the Junior Achievement Association of New York. She is a member of the American Cancer Society. She has a bachelor's in criminal justice, modeling and law. She has a master's of public administration. Concentration is in human resource management and management operations. And yes, she does have a first aid mental health certificate. My goodness. But not only that, she is a friend of mine. A friend of mine. Above all those accolades, those Jordan-like accolades, she is a better human being, a better person, a better woman. And I couldn't be more prouder of who you are as a person. I thank you for doing this with me again for 2 hours. The first time wasn't planned. This time it was planned for 2 hours because we thought it's necessary for the culture, the community, from both of our fields. So I've just listed a whole bunch of accolades for you. So you are the perfect person as an HR executive to have this conversation with. And as for me, I have extensive work in this field. I have taught numerous workshops on career readiness, job readiness training, in colleges, in nonprofits. I have been a manager where I've had to interview many people. Now I've been on the agency side working for agencies where I'm in the boardrooms with the hiring managers and hearing about what they say. Now I'm on the HR side, on the recruiting side. So I've interviewed probably thousands of people. So between us, I think that we have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on, and we have our ear to the streets of what's going on when it comes to career readiness. But enough about little me. I just named a gauntlet of things that you have accomplished, and I'm so very proud of you. So again, thank you for doing this with me, little old me. Appreciate you again.
You're not little old me, and no, thank you for having me. And, you don't sell yourself short. But yeah, for purpose of this conversation, I think I had some moment to reflect. One, there are people asking the questions, and in addition to that, I thought about a few things. So let me just put a disclaimer out there. The opinions and the things that I share are not necessarily associated to my current employer, which I will not share who that is. But
yes,
in my extensive HR background, having done many things from the recruiting side to benefits the general space.
Wait. Hold on a second. You done started without me. This is a sip and learn. Cheers.
No, this is not the start.
I saw you took a sip while I was doing the introduction. I was culture slipping. But cheers.
Yeah, cheers to you.
Yeah, this is a sip and learn.
Hi.
Cheers.
Hi.
Cheers
I hope everybody
cheers
has.
to you.
Oh, let me do that again.
I hope everybody got some in their hand. Cheers to everybody
Yeah.
on this live. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you. Um, but yes, so yes, I don't want to get that out of the way. So yes, please continue, man.
That's fine because I was gonna just throw that in every episode. But, yeah. So I know having sat through. So my most recent, I migrated into a new position during the pandemic and negotiated and got into.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But prior to that, the last 3 or so years, I was at JP Morgan as a vice president, global business partner, supporting the enterprise across the world, chiefly responsible for wealth management. And having done that, really sat and worked extensively with recruiting. Really had a lot of questions of people saying, "Well, how do you get into a firm such as, what are you looking for?" And all these different questions. In addition to that, from the promotion perspective, like when I thought through. And I kind of follow my JP Morgan people, tooted my horn into a little bit, just that in that space, the managing director role is the highest level you could achieve as far as the title.
Right.
And I had successfully coached, executive coaching, many executive directors to become managing directors. And my track record is I've never lost, right? And so I thought, if I'm doing this so much there in that space, there's really great opportunity to share it with people who are asking those questions, who are not sure, who are unclear, and really giving that, right? I mean, I have my own HR consulting firm that I started, and so that's a different pay for that information, but really want to take the opportunity to answer those questions, share some information. I really hope it's interactive, and you guys are really asking for what you want to hear. We have some things to share as well.
Yeah. And in my experience working in nonprofit and hiring people and interviewing lots of people, I was surprised at how many people just don't know the basics.
Yeah.
I was shocked, I think, I was just like, wow, like we really need this, especially in our communities, and I would be kind of disappointed when I would be going out and wanting to kind of give people in our communities those opportunities, and they would come in and it would just be a complete debacle. And I would be like, oh man, like, you don't even know, and it's tough. And so
I've had a lot of moments.
Lots of moments.
So many things where I'd see a resume, and the resume is the first depiction that the organization has of you. And simple like typos and things of that nature that we'll see and have you judged. I have seen all the uglies behind the curtain. I've had it where I've heard, and I certainly speak up. I'm not quiet, as you may already tell, but there are managers who would have a thing like they don't want to hire a person from the Bronx. Like there are a lot of different things that happen. There are things set up against.
There's a lot.
Just being mindful of what's a best practice, and also not even. And we're going to go into that. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but for anyone out there who is currently looking, one, the economy is such that there are a lot of decisions being made by companies that are not favorable to a lot of hiring right now. And two, even when it is favorable, even when it does speak to a lot of hires out there, I would get a lot of times saying, well, I'm not getting called back. Like, what am I doing? And I will say this. I have done hiring requisitions where I have more than 1,000 applicants, right? Really going to be centered around the first 10 or so that I see. And of that, the first 5 or 3 that I find are, that make sense, they're better aligned. And so they may have never even seen your resume. So don't take that so much as a judgment on self. And when you get your foot in that door and you have that conversation, it's not always that you're not good enough. It's really never that you're not good enough. It may be that you don't fit exactly what they're looking for varying reasons. Sometimes it's cultural fit. Sometimes it's, I have a team that operates in this way, so I need a person to fit in that culture. And while you're qualified on paper, you don't have that. The biggest thing that I think we're experiencing in the HR, in the human capital space now, is maybe 5 years ago, there was the understanding that we would have a very challenging time hiring people. While we have multiple degrees, many people are lacking what we call EQ, the emotional intelligence, that quotient that's necessary to tell me how you work, right? Are you a results-driven person? How are you demonstrating that you're, going to go ahead and find the answer if you don't have it? Those pieces are what we're looking for. Right, we'll talk about STAR and all those pieces so that people understand what that is when they go in an interview that's being used to really gauge where they're coming from. But more so than anything, you have big companies like Google, et cetera, who are no longer requiring degrees, like master's or
Right.
bachelor's degrees,
Right.
because we realize the importance of that emotional intelligence, that EQ piece that comes to the table, because the education and everything will get you there and get you in the conversation. But if you're a person that people don't want to work with, you really don't show that proactive initiative, you're not going to get through. So just keep that mindful that it's not a you thing most of the time. Right.
And also just realizing that not every company is uniformed in a one-stop shop in the way that you should approach an interview. You know, being in a room with you know, executives from Tapestry, you know, and Tapestry, you know, that's Coach Stuart Weitzman, right? And you know, they're a fashion company, right? So, you know, when I would be in the room with them talking about what they want, they're looking for a particular, like, the biggest thing for them was culture fit. Them specifically.
We're going to talk about culture fit.
Because, yeah, and they're a fashion company, right? So, you know, what a lot of people don't, like, what a lot of people do is they come from a finance background, right? And boom, suit, tie, boom, and they walk into Tapestry. And off the bat, Tapestry looks at you, suit and tie, and says, oh, banker, he's out.
Yeah.
Done. You know, qualified to the up team, right? Yeah. But it's really about, you know, how do you fit in, you know, with their team? You know what I'm saying? Because if you walk in every day in a suit and then you got other guys in just button-down shirts, you know, polos, you know what I'm saying? You know, stylish, because you have to know, like, who you're interviewing with. You know what I'm saying? If you're going into BOA, JP Morgan, you're suiting up. Merrill Lynch, you're suiting up 100%. If you're going into Kate Spade, Stuart Weitzman, even if it's the same finance role, please look up the culture.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Look up the culture, because it's not just a one-size-fits-all thing. You know, and a lot of people make that mistake of doing that. And just by appearance, it's like, oh, we're good. You know what, Terrence? Like, he was great on paper, but he's just not a culture fit.
Yeah, so let's
and it's just like,
paper, right, for a minute as we jump into the interview. So, question I get asked more than anything, more often than not, really, is resume, right? And there's not a one-size-fits-all. There's not a one perfect way to do a resume. There's different styles. There are things with pictures. There's videos. There's so many different options. I would just really offer this misnomer that the resume has to be one page. That is a lie. The last time my resume, I have a CV, but the last time that was one page was probably high school, quite frankly, right? So it doesn't have to be one page. So let's get that out of the way first and foremost. To remember, you're branding you. You are selling you. And I like to offer that when you come in and you think your resume is presenting, really think about, what is the problem that I solve? What is it about me that's unique and different? You know, I tell people all the time, do a brain dump. Throw all your skills and abilities on paper, even if you think it doesn't resonate, if you think it's not really important. It's just really important to get it out of your head. Stop worrying so much about how to write it and how to make it make sense. You'll do that after. But do a brain dump. Take the time, invest in yourself, and really just throw out all the things you've done. Things that are not necessarily aligned to work, right? Things that maybe align to your personal life. How do you show up for people in your life, right? Are you an advisor? Are you often sharing information with your friends and want to do better? All these things are skills that you may not be speaking appropriately to yourself that could really be helpful in your next position. So when you're approaching a resume, really sit and take the opportunity to do a brain dump of all the skills, abilities, experience that you have, whether you were paid for it or not, and then compile that information to really make it sound. But know that it should speak well of you, right? And it really should think about it. This is the only thing that these people get to know about me. What are those things that I want to make sure they know? Right.
And from a recruiting standpoint or from an agency standpoint, depending on how you're, you know, like how you're approaching, you know, applying for different jobs. And if you're working with the recruiter, a lot of times they're the ones who tell you about the one pages because they know their clients. So what I would also suggest is having more than one resume. You know, one that you use that when you're applying to the direct companies, you know, online. And then one, if you're working with somebody, heed their advice because they're the ones that's working with their client and they know what they want. So if they tell you Don't exceed the 1 page. Don't exceed the 1 page because they know what their clients are looking for. And that's who is going to get you in the door. You know what I'm saying? So have at least 2 resumes. You know what I'm saying? So that's all. That's something else that I just want to say, because sometimes, you know, in my experience, like when I've spoken to candidates and they go, oh, well, you know, I can have 2 pages. And I'm like, hey, the hiring manager that's sitting right next to me is telling me he doesn't want to read all that. He's looking for something specific. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I have a question for you on that. So I've worked in hired or signed contracts for agencies, right? In my times. And often when that happens, I'm very clear to the agency about what I want. First and foremost, when I go to the agency, I want 3 people, and they better be great. They better be the people that I'm ready to hire, and I like to get a synopsis of the person. I want a professional summary. I would barely ever really look at the resume because I'm looking at the professional summary to ensure that you gave me what you did. And so in that experience, what I've also found is often, even for myself, I have an executive recruiter who works with me and finds me positions if I'm looking. They take the resume, well, for me it's a CV, and change it. Like they take my information off so that conversation is happening with them. Do you find that to be true as well? Because I know sometimes people have said to me to get alarmed by getting that resume.
100%.
Where it's changed? Yeah. Just wanted to miss that.
Well, they don't, you know, you're not supposed to, like, you know, outright just change it, right? But when it comes to, but when it comes to the whole name off, we're supposed to take the name off, but you know, just because you know we don't want anybody else, you know, just for certain reasons like that.
Yes, Lisa,
but for me,
never be 1 page. Usually.
So I think that if you're working with the recruiter, just understand that they have their ears.
Recruiter, yeah, it's different.
Yeah, like they have the ears to that because people are like, no, that's not supposed to. And I'm like, guys, I'm trying to help you here, right? So just keep that in mind and have more than 1 resume. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to just put that out there too. Yeah,
and I would say things like I do have 1 resume, right? And my career path has been very deliberate and very intentional. That speaks very well to exactly what it needs to. And so it's a CV. My CV is probably 3 pages or 4, and that's been
doesn't
just
surprise
fine.
me.
Whatever.
So the intro I gave you, that was 1 page alone.
But what I would suggest is things like you no longer have to put your address, your mailing address. We like to have it when we actually go forward to hire, so we have that information entering systems. However, like I said, I have seen discriminatory practices that cannot necessarily be proven. Where I've heard of hiring managers saying to my recruiters things, not my personal recruiters, but recruiters at the office, that they don't want a person from this particular demographic. These things do happen. So for all those reasons, I really employ people. 1, use an email address that's specific to your resume so you can keep track of that. Please don't have it be shaking my booty 10 or anything derogatory or to that point, right? Keep it simple.
I got stories about that.
I've seen a lot of things. Use an email, create an email just for that purpose, if that's the case, if that's what you want to do. And also, you know, you don't have to put in your phone number where you can be reached and your email. You don't have to put in your information as far as your home address or what have you. That's sufficient enough to be in contact with you and to get what they need. Because again, that discriminatory practices, while they may not be often or maybe always perhaps, they do happen. And so just a side of caution, I wouldn't do that.
So I want to get to that in 1 second, but there is a question. Delish Catering, what's up, Michelle? She said, what are your thoughts on catering your resume to the job postings? Which a lot of people do.
I say no, because I think a lot of people do it inappropriately. It's very easy for me to say as a hiring manager, and also just sitting in HR and when in recruiting, when a person is tailoring something so very specific that you just tell me what they want to hear. And I don't want to waste my time and get on the phone or have you come in when I know you're just going to regurgitate information. And I know very well how to get what I need, right? So I would say be mindful. Like when you're thinking about a position that you'd like to take on, do some research. It's not that hard. Look at a few roles that are very similar. Look at some of the things that they're asking for as essential functions and job duties, and then scale your resume to speak appropriately to that. I wouldn't base it necessarily on one particular role, but I would say if you're thinking about, let's say, customer service reps, right? You're looking for a role that's within that space. Take some time and just really set up your resume to speak intelligently to some of the things that you see more often. If you're seeing 5 jobs and they're all asking for something similarly, then you speak to that in yourself to ensure that that pops out. We do keyword searches. We look for that often, if not
Oh,
often.
yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily tailor it to one thing, because then you know what, also, you'll have a hard time remembering. Like, wait, what did I put on that one? What did I have on this one? And how did I say that? So you don't want to get caught out there. I've had that experience where people come in and it's like, you call them, and I had a coordinator call them for the phone interview, and they're like, wait, what company is this? Wait, who? Like, how? And right up that, that's like, okay, we're done.
No go.
You know, I would say if you're looking for a particular role, like Terrence is showing, if you have 2 resumes, thinking about how you're tailoring it. There are people who are saying, you know what, I'm looking for 2 different kind of roles. Maybe I'm doing something that's more admin and something that has a different skill. So do that, but really think about the roles, right? And do something that can be uniform used, but not something specific so much to one job. Like, that's where you don't want to get hooked. But the skills and the essential functions are generally pretty similar. So you could do that.
I think was True Diddy. Mark said people using their work email. What did he just say? People using their work email to find new opportunities. Oh God. I mean, listen, I've had it all. Like I've had so many different things, so many different experiences. You wouldn't even believe if I told you the kind of stuff that came through my desk. So that doesn't surprise me either. But let's talk about that discrimination, because that's huge. And working in agencies, I have various different clients, right? So I have the opportunity to speak with various different hiring managers, right? Various. It's amazing, right? So it's not just one company that I'm just hiring for at the time, right? So there's so much, and I know you said, like, you know, it may not be often. It's a lot more than you think.
No, I said it's not always. Maybe always.
Yeah, no. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's not always. But man, oh man, the discrimination is absolutely real. It's gender discrimination.
That's for sure.
I've had that a lot.
Random names that they don't.
And it's not even supposed to happen. It's not even supposed to happen. Like, even like if you're working for an agency or whatever the case is, the client's telling you, say, hey, make sure you send me a guy, or make sure you send me only women. That's not the way. Of course, it's not supposed to happen that way.
There's a little wiggle room here, and I'll say that just from there is legally.
It depends on the company.
Good point, right? So as a company, and we did this where I required in my last role, it was a requirement for me at JP Morgan, right, that all my managers and we adopted that across our technology, especially, that we had a diverse slate. For every single position that there was, I wanted to see a diverse slate, which meant my diversity in that space was Black, Hispanic, and female. For every job, I wanted to see candidates, at least 1 or 2 or more candidates that fit, that have that diversity. So there is opportunity to sit here and ask specifically for certain things. To say, I'm not saying don't give me qualified candidates. I'm saying in the group of candidates that you're providing me, I would like to see a diverse slate, and that includes this group of people. So make the express
right.
Just that. But then there's the thing of, I really would like a guy, right? And that's where it's like, okay, hold on a second. And often that you went on the agency side, I definitely wouldn't hear that. But what I'm saying is, even from my end, just really working, because in my role even now, I approve every offer that goes at a particular level. And I am the person who pushed back, right? I'll get a resume and it's an offer for a person, a male. This is a real example. I got an offer for a person, and it was a male, and we were offering that person, I think, $95K, right, for the year. A week later, I got similar role, same role, different manager, same recruiter, and it was a female, and sent me the request to make this offer at 90, and I said, that's going to be a no. Why? Right? Why would we do that? So that does come up in different ways, but I do think that there's opportunity where it's helpful in just how it's gauged. And I don't know, what do you do when you have a client who is saying, I'd really like a male? Like, what do you do with that as a recruiter?
Well, for us, it's against company policy. right? For for us, that would be against company policy because it's our job to find you the best viable candidate. And
And
if you come to us and if you explain to us and say, hey, listen, these are the reasons why we might want this particular candidate, then, fine. But if you just come to us and say, oh, we want only women, and we look at the job description, right? So we're looking at the job and seeing, okay, what's the difference? So if you're an accountant or something like that, right?
mm-hmm.
And I have two viable, incredible women candidates.
Yeah.
Incredible, right? The resume is impeccable, and you go, no, send me some guys.
Yeah, that's the
but that's because now you're forcing us into a position to where now we have to now discriminate, and it's that's not what we can do,
right? Because it's high pressure. I mean, signing some of these contracts with some of these recruiting firms, it's hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that go by just in hiring, contracting with these recruiting firms. And so for me, if I can say to you my preference, I know I can say I prefer, and when I'm saying I have, I held it again, right, to say that for every role that I'm asking you to fill for me, I need diverse candidates. I need to reach a diverse, and that means 2 or more. I know I can say that, but there's still not the piece of don't send me X or I only want Y. It's more so that I prefer this to get to the right space. So there's a fine little line.
There is.
Sometimes it's not communicated, right? It's just it just happens. And so how do you prepare for that with a candidate? Because there's not much a candidate can do. We have to change that culture in the organization. And for an agency where you're working for a company, I don't know if you've seen this in agencies you've worked for, have they then, stopped the contract with particular folks or what is the stance?
Yes. Yeah. No, there have been times where we've had to terminate contracts with certain employers because their practice wasn't their hiring practices weren't aligned with what we were about. You know what I'm saying? And we try, and the one thing about the different agencies that I've worked for is we always try to give you the best possible candidates that we can find and work with you towards your preference. But if it's a thing of you won't even just entertain, one gender or another, and you have a certain, then that's where things get very dicey for us because it's our, and that's something that we can't, that we couldn't afford. And truthfully, it just wasn't right. So I would always have to go back to the hiring manager and push back on the hiring manager and say, hey, listen, we are going to do our best to get you what you prefer, but we are also going to send you the best candidate that we have as well. And you can make your decisions from there. But you're not going to put us in the box to where we're going to be in all types of legal situations that we don't want no parts of. You know what I'm saying? But that's a real thing. And a lot of times, when employers are working with agencies, they figure that they can do that to the agency because they don't have to do that. They don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? So,
recruiters having statistical quotas, that is true. That is absolutely true in enterprises.
That's my brother. Shout out to my brother.
That's very true.
And that's true too.
I've worked. My recruiters have that. There are particular metrics. There's things like time to fill a position that they have. There's the amount of
100%.
rec, the number of days it takes to fill a rec. So they are sitting behind that.
Yeah. We are.
As companies now, and you continue to see that more now, especially. That's been the case for some time now, and it's probably spreading to more and more companies where diversity is the conversation. It's been in the conversation. Diversity and inclusion has become diversity and inclusion. Some people have belonging, some people have equity, and I just literally did a workshop on that as far as what does that mean? What is diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, as well as how do you infuse that in your hiring? And that's kind of central to what I was sharing as far as saying, you know what, we want a slate. I had a leader who said, I want to achieve 100% diverse slate. And that's damn near improbable. It's damn near improbable.
Impossible.
Because not every person identifies, and you can't force them to identify to say that they're diverse or they're not diverse. And diversity being ethnic diversity as well as gender. So that's changed a lot. So there are a lot of quoters. But I have a question for you, Terrence, and speaking to, when you think about job search and job tools, and I know that you've done extensive work in that space, and I will share as well, but
Right.
what do you find are the best methods, opportunities, avenues for persons who are in search for work?
Well, what I find is LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool. LinkedIn for me is one of the top tools that I use. And a lot of people have LinkedIn, but they have LinkedIn and it's just sitting there, right? They don't use it the right way. LinkedIn is one of the most powerful tools that you can actually reach out to somebody like you in HR and somebody like me,
Happens a lot.
right? And say, hey, my name is Brian, and you know what? I just want to send you my resume and this, that, and the third. And when I do workshops and I'm like, who has a LinkedIn? Half the room will be like, oh, I do. And I said, perfect. Well, how many of you use LinkedIn? Like use it for networking and applying for jobs? How many of you use it? And then the hands go from 50% to like 15%. And I'm just like, and I'm like, guys, like you guys are dropping the ball. I've literally, on the personal note, have gotten hired from LinkedIn just by doing that myself.
Let me
by me doing that.
Let me just give a testimonial, right? A little bit about LinkedIn. There are particular times I was deliberate in my effort to stay off of Instagram. I don't have Facebook and Twitter, but stay off of those and focus on LinkedIn. Like it was intentional. Like I'm going to focus my energy on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn often,
Powerful.
and I'm on there often.
Me too.
People, I would get the question a lot, like, how did you get the job at JP Morgan? Let me tell you what happened. Yeah. I randomly, I was in the search, I was looking, but not super active, but looking. And I saw this posting for this role at JP Morgan on LinkedIn. And I applied for it late night, woke up the next day, wasn't even really thinking about it because I applied for a couple of different roles. Got the recruiter call me and got the interview, second interview, got the job. So when people ask, like, well, how do you get into a big company and such and et cetera? LinkedIn was it, right? Some of my best connections and networks, really staying close to the people on there. They know a lot of people. There are a lot of groups on there. You don't have to do a lot on LinkedIn to have it useful to you. You don't have to be on it every day, but staying engaged, liking a few things, being in touch with people on there. Former people I reported to from like way back in like when I started my career in HR at HSBC, still connected, still checking ever so often. And that's your network. Tim Gray, I think, is the one who introduced me to the saying that your network equals your net worth.
Your net worth, yeah.
So expanding your network and choosing intentionally to align yourself with people who may one day be able to speak to an opportunity for you. Even there, it was like people that I met. So I started my consulting firm. I haven't even branded it out or shared a lot of it. But the few people who knew have reached out to me. So I was busy doing diversity workshops during this space of time. So if I would share anything to people who might be listening, it's to rededicate and repurpose, reclaim some of your time from tools such as this, such as Instagram, that's more social, and spend some time with that on LinkedIn. Give some attention to that. Throw a picture up. Throw some information, a little detail about yourself. I have recruiters reaching out to me all the time, and my status says I'm not open to opportunities, and still.
Right.
Yes, I always said I wanted it to be where I positioned myself where people are calling me rather than me calling them. LinkedIn is a perfect opportunity to do that. It's right at your fingertips. I would say take some time and opportunity to look into using that more thoughtfully.
Yes. Yes. It's such a powerful tool, and it's one of the most underutilized social media platforms that I know. So that's one. And I want to touch on another thing, and that's job applications. You know, if you don't have a job, right now, or at any point you don't have a job and you're looking for employment, please don't apply to 2 jobs a week and expect an interview. I'm so passionate about this because it makes me so mad. People be applying for jobs, like 2 jobs a week, and expect to get 10 interviews. I'm trying to tell you, when I was looking for a job, that was my job. You know what I'm saying? Even when I had a job and looking for a job, that was my second job. I'm talking about I'm on the grind, diversifying my portfolio, and I'm applying to all, because there's a lot of jobs out there that you might can do, and that you might be great at. You know what I'm saying? And that fits your qualifications. And each site might have different jobs. So if you know me on LinkedIn, then you don't know me on Indeed. Oh no, see, people knew me on every site, on every job site. Terrence was there. My resume was there. Hi, my name is. And I was getting like 10 to 15 interviews a month. And people were like, well, how did you do that? You know how? It's because I was applying to like 40 jobs a week.
Yes.
40 jobs a week to only get 10 jobs, 40 jobs a week, only to get 10 to 15 interviews a month. So I was at like 120 applications per month, and I only got about 10 to 15 interviews.
I will say this, because I have to be critical of the recruiting field, and I am. And I'm critical of my recruiters. I share this feedback all the time. Even when I was applying for this job, and thankfully, because I have executive recruiters, I generally don't have to jump right into filling the application, because I find it oftentimes redundant. Typically, it's like, okay, send your resume or attach your resume, and then they ask you all the questions from your resume. It's like, really? So I think to do better by way of that. But yes, searching for a job or role is a job in of itself. It's an effort. It's something that you have to actually take the time out to truly do. And again, if you're doing it for yourself, then it ought to be important for you. I think absolutely what you shared, and ensuring that you're not just on one platform or one space. I always say I keep a book whenever I start a search. Keep a book just to keep tabs on what companies I applied to and what roles I applied for. There is a little bit of a negative connotation. I will not lie to you. When we're sitting back there and seeing a person who has applied to 15 different jobs in our company that are very different.
On the same company, no. Yeah, that's different. Yeah, you don't do the same company.
I kid you not. We use
it does.
And some of the things, the platforms we use, like Taleo, etc., you have it where a person has applied for 10 or 15 different jobs and different enough. Like, wait, so you don't know what you really want to do. You just want to work here.
Right.
So being mindful of that too. Like, don't just go about and just, spreading yourself thin, but, go on different sites. Don't just think, not just LinkedIn, not just, Indeed and Monster, but get out there, because not everybody uses the same platform either. Not everybody
right. And
company site also.
Yep, and also it depends on where you're at in your career. I think for somebody like you who's senior, somebody like me, I may not have to do like 40 applications, but if you're young and you're getting out there, then grind. You know what I'm saying? Like, truthfully, really grind. It's not gonna come to you like that. Some people just waiting on a miracle. It's gonna come to you. Oh, the job is gonna land in your lap. Nah, you gotta put in the work. Like, you have to put in the work. You know what I'm saying? So, I'll say that, Lisa said, do you both look up candidates on social media before interviews? Does that sway your opinion? So for me, not like social media, like, like Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. That personally, that's not my thing. But what I do is look up on LinkedIn to see if you're on LinkedIn. And depending on what job I'm recruiting for, if you're not on LinkedIn, that could be could be a deal breaker. And some of the hiring managers too, they're like, well, they don't have a LinkedIn. I don't know. Like, so it depends. But I'm not on your, for me, I'm not on your Instagram or Facebook now. Now, does a hiring manager do that? Some of them do that. So, the hiring managers, because they want to see, because they're the ones that's going to be managing you. So they might want to see how you're doing. So it happens.
Every major company, most major companies or Fortune 500s especially, have a social media policy, right? Most every
yeah.
And I would often, when I was JP Morgan, do information sessions for our incoming investment bankers, right? And share with them that we have this and give them scenarios. So do I? No, but do we? Yes, we absolutely do. For very good reason. I have been behind terminations for people who have done things on social media. The fact that you see this happen often where people are on Twitter or whatever they're on and they do something and people find out they work for X company and then that's the company. For branding purposes, the company protects itself. It is very mindful things that we share is that, so long as you're not aligned, or you might see my Twitter has a header, like my opinions, my thoughts, my tweets have no association to my employer, to not have that. But sitting in the seat that I am in, I do get emails every ever so often from my compliance department who will share with me people who have, they've gotten complaints about a person who their Facebook says that they work for our company or something along the lines of that. So before hiring, often enough, there are hiring managers who will take a look at that. There are particular recruiters in-house who do sometimes take a look at that. It's for some reason why I have my media set up as I do in certain spaces. So I'd be mindful of that, about what it says. But it's not far and wide, and it's often reasonable, right? It's often reasonable. It's depending on things like, are you speaking hate speech? It's not necessarily judging you on the beach or something to that end, but it's really speaking to your personhood. So more and more companies are tending to do that, especially small companies who are not hiring a lot of people, but a few people are mindful of that. So, I keep this Instagram, this is private, for very good reason, right? And things of that nature. So I err on the side of just being mindful of that, of things that are just open for everyone. It's not everybody does it, but companies do it, and they will remind you that there is a social media policy that you will sign to continue your employment. So be mindful of that.
Right. And I think for us, well, for me, I think when it comes to social media, it may be monitored more so once you're hired. On the way in, it's kind of like checking out your LinkedIn profile. Like we don't just start looking at your Instagram or Facebook on the hire. That's
exactly. We don't monitor. It's just too much work to monitor everybody's social media. What happens is, if a person,
it's wild.
We will have people. I've gotten a couple. We've had people who they find that you're an employee of our company, and they will write to us, say, this is your person and this is what they said. And then we have to go look into, does this person still work here? What did they say? Remind them of the policy. And depending on what it is, right, it could be a terminable offense. So it's used in that way. It's not necessarily just that, we're watching every single thing. It's not quite that way. But yeah.
So we got about 13 minutes left on this part one, on this hour. So I kind of just wanted to get into, for you, Stauna, negotiating salary. I find that a lot of times in our community, we don't ask for what we want. And I feel like we don't ask for what we want. It's just because a lot of times we might feel like, if you ask, then you might not get hired, or they might consider somebody else. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we kind of sell ourselves short before we even get to the door. And so we just settle for what they give us, right? So I really wanted you to speak on that as far as negotiating salary and best practices behind that.
Yeah, so negotiating salary. A couple of things that I'll speak to that I think are best practices, and I pride myself on just that piece.
Oh, yes.
It's not even just knowing what you want, because I want a lot. But it's understanding the value of the role that you're seeking first, right? You have to understand that.
Yes.
So there's opportunity to do good enough recon research, and don't just come in with, I saw on salary.com. No one in HR is using salary.com. That is information that people, and there's no level of understanding the integrity behind that information. The Department of Labor Statistics, federal government, has a site that has that information, and even that, you have to gauge, because every title is different than the actual responsibility. So you have to think about that. When you look at different roles, and there's information out there, and if you're looking for a particular role, you look at different roles, see what they're paying, different ranges. You might find a couple different things, and gauge that. Gauge that to see where that is. Always, I say, when you're walking into, before you even start interviewing, get clear about what you want, what you deserve, what you require as a value. I usually have, I could live with this number, right? I would like this number, but I'd really love this number. And believe me, the recruiters asking what I'm looking for, they get the love. This is what I love. And that's what I'm coming in with. The higher end of what is assumed for that particular position, right? So if it's a role that's paid between, I don't know, $50,000 to $75,000, I'm going with 75, right? Let's bring me down, because by the time we get to the conversation about pay, about salary, you've had a pretty good sense that you want to hire me. It's just me
Right.
thinking about, or me and one other person. So don't let that be a deterrent to go in and lowball yourself, because then you're going to be pissed at yourself.
Mm.
Generally, it's externally to them, but you're going to be upset that you're not getting what you think you deserve or what you want. So going very clear. You know the work that you do. You know how well you do it. They don't necessarily know that. But you know that this particular role really calls for pay around this space. So have those numbers. Have those 3 numbers. You're always going to get asked that. In places like New York and many other municipalities and states have this. It's against the law to use a person's current pay to determine their future pay. Recruiters cannot ask you how much you make today and use that to determine your pay. That is against the law in many places. New York is definitely one of them. Right, so don't be
100%.
afraid of that. They already have. We've been pushed because of these laws, which I think are great, to make a determination for the value of that seat. What is the value for this role being performed here? We already have that. So in essence, you could lowball yourself probably to the lowest number, but you cannot get yourself outside of the range, because we have to pay you along the range of what that is. So really think about your years of experience, right, that you're coming in with, the value of what this job generally pays from all that you've seen and all that you understand the research to be, and what is your, I can live with this number in case they come in that low. What is your, I like this. This is really good. I like that, but I would really love if they give me exactly what I want. And I would say always go in here, set that expectation, and say negotiable, because generally you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. So I usually go in with I'd love to have, you know, but there's so many more elements that are important for me to get the right space and with the right role with the right responsibilities. And so, of course, that's negotiable. That's right. I love number. It's negotiable. Let's dance.
And you don't know how many, sometimes being like a recruiter, sometimes like, you know, being in those rooms of how much, you know, the company's looking to spend. And sometimes they're looking to spend a good amount. And then when you're asking the candidate just what they want, and it's like, man, they shoot themselves in the foot so bad.
In that space, what do you do as a recruiter when you have a candidate who you know is lowballing themselves? Because I work with executive recruiters for myself personally, and I'm very clear about here's where I am, here's what I'm looking for. And really always trying to level set. And usually they'll say, oh, this role doesn't pay as much, so maybe not, or what have you. But what do? Are you speaking to the candidate and saying, actually, this role generally pays this? Is that what you're doing in that conversation?
Well, see, first, you know, when we have the initial conversation, I get all that information before. I get to know like just what they're looking for and things like that. And when they lowball themselves so much, sometimes, you know, I have a further conversation with them, and sometimes they open up to me a lot just about, sometimes it could be out of desperation. They just want a position,
want a job,
and they know, or they think that if they lowball themselves, that they'll kind of undercut the competition, you know, and that's not true.
That's a fallacy.
Because the client will come back and say, oh yeah, no, so he's more of a junior level person. Yeah, like we're not looking for that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I try to like help people and say, hey, you know, they might go a little bit higher. Like, what do you think your worth is? And I try to say, hey, so what do you think your worth really is? Like, you have this great resume. Why is it that you think that your job that you require just $25 an hour? Like, what is it?
That's the thing, right? So many jobs. The reason why we have the law in place is so many companies were lowballing people simply based on, well, that's what they asked for. So now you're put in a position where you can't just, that's what they asked for any person, right?
You get what you asked for. Right.
But for a person coming in, I think it's important to, one, be confident. I go into every interview, and for me, it's, why do I want to work for you? Why do I want to work here? Like, I'm going to share with you why you should have me, but I walk away absolutely needing you to understand that I have a choice. We all have choices. And I need to understand, even if I don't have a job and I'm looking or whatever the case is, why do I want to work for you? And to be quite honest, if you're looking for work to be performed at a particular level, right? Say you're looking for work to be performed at, Mercedes level. You're not going to sit here and want to get a Honda. If you're selling yourself like, your Honda, I'm cheap, I could just do this. So really understand the value that you add. Like, you have to come in
Well,
confident, clear about yourself, and also what the role, you know, what it requires out there. I know it can be
and
done.
I also think that people value themselves not based on their work, but based on where they're at in life
Right,
at
but
that particular
you
time.
have to move away from what your worth is and what. No, you're invaluable, right? There's no value
Right,
in the individual.
right.
I have to think about the work that I'm doing today. What is someone
Hmm.
willing to pay for that? Like I say to people, and we'll get to that when we talk about promotions. Where I get people saying,
Hmm.
"I think I deserve this much money," and I would say, "Why?" Well, because I
Right.
do a job. I do a lot of. Okay, but why? Right, not making a business
Hmm.
reason, but when you think about McDonald's, and I use that example often, if not always, if you in
Hmm.
2000 were working at McDonald's and you were flipping burgers at McDonald's, you're not making 100 grand today doing that. That's not what's
Right.
happening, right? That it doesn't change that way. McDonald's has said,
Right.
do this actual work. Here's how much we're willing to pay to do this work, and that's what you have to
Hmm.
get clear about. What is the value of what I'm adding to this company? What does that look like?
Right.
This role that I'm performing, how valuable is that? And how I do it
Right.
better is where the raise is coming. How I do it better is where I'm asking for the top end of the range. How I do
Right.
it better. But as a company, they don't know you. They don't know that you do it that much better. They can see that in your years of experience, right? So forget
Right.
that knowing your worth. You're worth a lot. Understand the
Hmm.
value add of this particular role and what you're bringing to the company. Get a little bit clear about
Right.
that. Not sure? Ask for help. Reach out to people. Google is there for everybody. There's so much information.
But I feel it's true, but I also feel that even if you do all those things, and
Yeah.
me seeing things, and this is for more, and this is more so coming from the nonprofit side of me, like me being in those rooms
Yeah.
with people, even if they do the research and they see that this job is worth this, they still come at this because of what they internally feel about their situation in their life and how desperate they are to find just an opportunity. And so sometimes we have to reprogram, you know what I'm saying, just kind of what we feel, just like you said, about ourselves
Yes.
and being invaluable, right? But it takes a lot more than just kind of just going and looking and seeing how
Yeah.
much this job is particular and how good of a job you can do. Sometimes it is reprogramming the way you think about life in general,
I mean, it
because
absolutely is that. It's how you view yourself,
Mhm.
right? Because if
Yeah,
you're confident and clear about what you bring to the table, you wouldn't be lowballing yourself to a point. So you have to ask yourself some really hard questions, and that's a different kind of work to be done absent
yep,
of that. But great point there as far as you have to get clear about yourself and what your value added and what you're willing to give, and having that confidence
hmm
in yourself and being clear about that is really going to be essential to what drives that. But go in and ask for what you deserve, because you deserve
hmm
it, period. And
yep,
I have to,
hmm
especially for my females, right? There's no misnomer that females are paid less than males. And I remember
hmm
just one day just having a real moment about that, where I was absolutely determined that was not going to be me. I'm going to ask the question,
and
you know,
it
not
wasn't you.
it wasn't. Not just going to accept what's being offered, but I'm going to push it. I'm going to ask the question, because I would have it where I'm in interviews. It's not, research does show that a woman would
Hmm.
see a role, and of the 10 things on that role, probably be great at 9 and not apply for it
Hmm.
because of that extra one thing. Whereas a man might
Right.
only really know that he has experience in 2 things and would still apply
Hmm.
for the role. And that really goes back to our confidence in stepping out and knowing, even if I haven't
Hmm.
done this before, I may have skills enough where I can sit here and gravitate and do this well. So a lot of this has
Right.
to do with confidence building. A lot of this has to do with, performance coaching and really
Hmm.
getting people to really see themselves for the best that they
Right.
want anything else.
Right. And that's where the nonprofit side of me always went in when teaching these types of courses on job readiness training. And the job part was to the latter, like was way down
So that's the
in
easy.
the curriculum. I had to do a lot of reprogramming, coaching, you know what I'm saying, and just working on them as a person and building that confidence within them. And then you'll see a lot of the different results, because I can teach you how to pass an interview. That part
But
is cake.
shows up.
You know?
That shows up in
And
the interview, right?
yeah,
I'm sure you see that when
yeah,
people come into you and they're meeting you as a candidate, that when you come in and you don't have the confidence, for a recruiting firm, I need to be able to sell you to someone else. You got to sell yourself to me. You got to give me something to work with to walk in there. I need to be confident that when I send you to meet a client, that you show up well enough and you represent the firm, because that's our brand at the same time. So there is definitely a big part of ensuring that persons are equipped, that they go in confident, that they can get this role, that they're qualified. Let me say, the mere fact that you got that call, that interview, you are qualified.
Right.
Period. Right. So when you're walking in there, one, get there early. Don't get to any interview late ever. People.
I gotta hold on. Wait. This is getting good, but it's about to cut off, and we're about to go into part 2 in a couple minutes. Okay. So everybody, go back and get a refill, and we'll be back in a couple minutes for part 2. Yeah. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Still want to read up. I already know she got her glass ready. Oh, see, right on cue. I said I already know you have to re-up with the glass. You know what I'm saying? So not to be outdone. Thank you. Appreciate you.
I mean, you know,
Ashy.
Lock and load.
Ashy.
Wow.
The classy.
Wait.
Ashy the classy. You know what I'm saying?
I need to like I'm going in with that.
The best of both worlds, right there, man.
You know, I don't have a.
Nah, this conversation is too good. Nah, you too classy for the red cup. It's all right. Nah, I already know. Please, it's all good. But yeah, so let's pick up where we kind of left off. So you were saying.
Je ne sais pas. Sorry. No, I can't recall exactly where we left off, to be quite frank with you.
We was talking about a lot of things. We talked about salaries. You know, and we went through negotiating salaries, and how we have to kind of, you know, get people to get their confidence back. Like when I worked in nonprofit, you know, it's like I was saying, a big part of my job, you know, was to teach them how to get jobs, right? But before they can even think about processing about getting a job, they had to break through a lot of barriers mentally and emotionally first. So a lot of my curriculum was confidence building, was breaking down barriers, was opening up. Yeah. Because because to go out into the world and say, oh, you know what, I need to be paid $70,000, that was beyond them. They were just like, yo, I'm just trying to feed my girl. I'm just trying to feed my boy. I'm going through divorce. I'm going through just many different things. I'm on welfare, just different things like that. Just that they couldn't get past. So their value, so what they felt about themselves showed in what they asked for in salary.
Yeah, and that's
crazy.
An important piece to learn. I think I've continued, much like yourself, I've done job readiness workshops and things of that nature, and there is definitely a psychology to all of this, right?
Yes.
The psychology of winning, the psychology of thinking of yourself in a different way. But I think even removing that, as I've mentioned a few times prior, that really getting clear about the value of that particular role, right? And it's the assumption that I can do this work, and this work actually comes with a pay that looks like X.
Yes.
But even just being confident that I can do this work, I'm able, and I can, and I will. I am.
So if you can, talk to them about the 3 things for the people that might have missed it or just coming on to the 8 o'clock slot.
Yep.
The 3 things that you look for when negotiating a salary, and then we can move forward.
The 3 things I look for, or the 3 things?
Yeah, because you mentioned that there were 3, the 3 thresholds that you go by.
Yeah. 1, I think you have to be clear on what you want, right? And 2, you have to set a standard for what you can live with. Right? 1, when you understand these jobs pay this amount of money, here's what I could live with. And then here's what I'd like to receive. But then you have here's what I'd love. Here's what makes you really happy. I'd be happy to join if I just got this. Right?
Yeah.
And that might look like I could live with $50,000, right? A year as a salary. I'd really like 60, but man, would I love 70 or 70. And really being able to speak to that which you love. And so even when you're filling those applications and it's asking that question, go with that number. And as mentioned prior, for those who missed it, it's really okay to sit here and say, I'd love X. I love this. However, my fervor to work here is to do great work. And so if everything lines up, I am open to negotiation. You're not stuck at that 75, right? So you want to
Right.
have wiggle room so that companies are understanding that you're open to the consideration and it's not just a numbers game. Because we don't really like that idea that you're just coming for a number, right? We want to know you
Right.
more than just that. The experience, the overall engagement of the employee is huge. Employee engagement surveys happen everywhere all the time. Really want to understand the person is aligned to the company. So really being able to speak to that and say, but go in knowing what you want, understanding the value of the role that you're looking for. Be clear about your 3 numbers: what you live with, what you like, and what you love, and go for it. Right, but step with confidence. Step with your confidence.
And people take her advice because she getting all the bags. She getting all the bags. I'm just saying, I ain't gonna put nobody out there on the street, but she getting all the bags. So please take her advice. She getting all the bags that you can think of.
I've been blessed and highly favored, and I am very appreciative of all.
That's what you want to call it, but you getting all the bags. So please take her advice. So my brother said, change your resume to show results as opposed to tasks. Results are more valuable than tasks as you progress. Ron, what up, Ron?
Yeah, so great point. I think, one, not many people have an understanding or an overstanding, rather, of the separation between that, right? And so being able to demonstrate in your resume where you have delivered, what you have done, what you've accomplished, rather than I took the trash out, right? And I'm just making this up, obviously. Rather than I took the trash out, I successfully ensured that the space was clean and ready for business every day. And I did so in attracting new clients into the space. So being able to speak in a way that shares that you are results-driven, solution-minded, essential. That goes back again to what I spoke to as far as the proactive nature of things, the soft skills that we're often looking for, and not what you have coming in. Listen, many people have degrees. A lot of people I sat with in my master's courses, I didn't understand how they got into school, but that's a whole nother story. A lot of people just don't have that fervor. I used to share this with the kids and in job readiness spaces, right, where you write the word hard work, all the different pieces that they're equal to A to B, C, D, E, F, G, don't really work. They get you half the way, a quarter, almost all the way.
Right.
Quite. Your attitude, how you show up to work every day. A company will deal with a person with a great attitude who's not working their best, rather than the person who might be doing really well, but their attitude really sucks. Nobody wants to work with that person.
Yes.
And we'll get into that
100%.
emotional intelligence piece. But really super important that when your resume speaks, it demonstrates how you're able to drive results for the business. They want to understand how are you going to be a partner in ensuring the success that we have here. I don't just need you to do a task, right? We need you to think as an owner. So when you show up as an owner, that this is important to me to get this accomplished. And so I hear so much people are like, well, I'm not doing all this for them, etc. Wait, that might hinge on the fact that you did not appropriately come in asking for what you deserve. So you feel like you're getting the return on that investment that you made. So again, it's rethinking that piece a little bit and to say, go in and ask for what you deserve. And when you get in there, demonstrate that you drive results. That your resume should speak to that, but your attitude and your actions should speak to that. Identify gaps, right? Gap analysis is big. I live on that my whole life. This is what's about. Where are we now? Where are we trying to get to be? And how can I bridge that gap and create that change? What is the gap that you don't identify? And that can happen in any role. But really being able to identify the essential functions that they're asking for in that particular job and how can you deliver on that will be a difference maker. So ensure that your resume speaks to that. And we didn't get this question, but I've had this a lot as far as cover letters, right? So I want to hear your input on that, Terrence, because I can share with you. I am ready for cover letter if anybody asks or wants it, but that hasn't happened. References, we have this thing, you don't put references, you don't put available in your request anymore.
Right.
I have, for my past, I don't even know, 2 or 3 jobs, no one has called a reference, even asked for a reference. And some places still do, but I'm just saying, be prepared with the information, but the relevance of it is changing over time, but always be prepared in the event.
Right. And just stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Be prepared. Have your cover letters ready. You know what I'm saying? Because, cover letters to me are a pastime, but you never know. And you always want to be very prepared. And the one thing is, people might ask you for a reference, right? And this happened to me on interviews. Oh, hey, do you have references to present, right? And boom, guess what?
Have it.
Pulled it out. Hey, here you go. The worst thing you can do is, oh, hold on, man. Let me get my phone. I got it somewhere in my phone, dog. Like,
Make sure that they
and
know, right? Your references better know that they are a
like,
reference for you. Because I've had that happen, but I'm quick on my feet, so I'm like, okay, yes, because these are usually people that I'm okay with doing that.
yeah,
But ensure that your references know that. But a lot of places don't really do that double check. They do the background checks.
right.
People say that.
No, but sometimes people, even if they don't call, they're just looking to see if you're prepared.
Well, yeah. Just
And even if they don't call the references, they're just like, see, he's not even prepared.
have it in your back pocket. Yeah.
Always. And it's like, it's like as long as you have it within your portfolio, you hand the resume, as long as you have your references with you. So even if they ask, then they go, oh, well, this young man is ready because out of all the people that they're interviewing, you could be the only one that was prepared, and that's what's going to be the only thing that's going to set you apart from that other person.
Yeah. So if I could just right, make sure your resume should always be up to date.
Always.
Started this
100%.
3 months ago. I've been a little tardy in my party, but that will be fixed shortly because, anyways, I won't go into that, but that will be fixed shortly. Have your resume up to date. Have a person look at it. If you're unclear about what you should put on there, like I said, do a brain dump. Just throw everything that you have any skill or experience in. Doesn't have to be related to an actual job. Just think about that. Reach out to people that you know who could be helpful. If they don't have to be in HR, it could have been people who just, they've been through different jobs. They may have some keen understanding. If you have the funds enough, you could invest in actually reaching to a person and paying for some help to get that done. But ensure that you have a really good resume, too, if you need it. Etc. And ensure that it speaks well of you. It's branding yourself, and it's your first marker in the door. I don't know anything about you. All I have is this paper saying a few things. So ensure that that's really well. Know that when you're not getting called, it's not necessarily that you're not good enough. Apply to varying different jobs. Don't do just 1-2 jobs a day or a week. Use different platforms. Use your network and your resources. Speak to people. Get to understand if they know about open positions. Search the websites of the companies that you want to be aligned with. Be deliberate in your task. Know what you want, know what you need, and go out there and get it because it's waiting for you to receive it. It's out there, waiting for you. Go out there and get it. It's not as hard as it often sounds.
It's so true. And I always say, listen, your resume can be immaculate and you could have the experience and the education, but you have to be the one to go in there and tell your story.
Yes.
I can't tell it for you as a recruiter. I can't do it for you. And it's very important that you know how to tell your own story.
Yeah. So
tell it well.
I think it's good that they want that over. Yes, we do want LinkedIn.
100%. Yo, a LinkedIn should be mandatory. Everybody needs to have a LinkedIn and use it.
It almost is. So I want to talk a little about recruiting and the interview process. I'm often teaching managers how to interview. A lot of managers are not good about that. They don't know how to. You'll find that often, if not always. I've gone into HR interviews myself and had to interview the person because they couldn't interview me. But when you go in, a lot of recruiters use what we call STAR, right? It's a situation, the task. So if you go in and you're speaking to the STAR in the first place, it really is an opportunity to demonstrate that you're very clear on what you did and how you did it. Oftentimes they'll ask questions specific to STAR to you. So if you're not familiar with the STAR method, it's a manner in which we interview to ask you to describe a situation, right? Speak about specific tasks that you took to accomplish what you needed to, what actions you took, and then what was the result. They usually try to phrase it in different questions, or some people just come out and say it. But a lot of recruiters use the STAR method to interview. A lot of managers who don't know much else of what to say when they're doing behavioral interviews, etc., will use STAR. So you can look it up. It's situation, it's task, it's actions, and it's results. So when you're in an interview answering questions, just come in prepared to speak about a situation, speak about the tasks that you took, speak about the actions that you embarked on, and what the result was. And right away, you've answered the questions that they would have for you, and that's already impressive. So if you're not familiar with STAR, look it up. But really, really
yes.
And that's
a lot of our recruiters, are using that exact method, and especially in companies like Google, especially Facebook, things like that. So a question from Ron. Ron said, what advice would you give to battling against the algorithms of job-seeking sites such as Indeed and increasing your probability of actually getting your resume viewed?
The algorithm of the sites. So if you're talking about just having your resume on the site and waiting for someone to reach out to you, I wouldn't say that's the best way to go about things.
Mm-hmm.
It does happen. It may not give you the quality of roles that you're looking for. And that's why I think
Mm-hmm.
it's essential, just as you had shared prior, that you go out there and actively look for roles that you want to align yourself with. I would not really
Right.
algorithms at all. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I've been in companies where they started using algorithms, and again, garbage in, garbage out, right? These
Right.
We're still looking at the issues that those bring, like they're biased. There are a lot of biases
Mm-hmm.
in there because they're looking at
Whew.
used before. If you're a company that's trended and you've not hired a lot of blacks or females, the information in the system is geared towards that, and so it's looking
Mm-hmm.
for that same repetition. So I would say make the effort in looking directly for roles that you apply for, and not really relying on an algorithm to align you to a particular job.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm not sure he was saying relying on it, but he was saying battling against the algorithms.
You can't fight the
You,
algorithm.
you really that I mean, truth. Hello? Oh, you got me?
Yes, I got you.
You got me?
Yep. You went out for a second there, but
You get me?
you're back. Yes, I can.
I can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Uh,
I'm gonna go.
but
with
you can
this
hear me
camera
there, right?
system,
I can't hear you.
right? You doing? You doing it, Teddy? Can
Hello?
you hear me or no? Oh, okay.
I lost you.
So you hear us both. I hear you, Terrence. You can't hear me, but they hear us.
Hold on one sec. Sorry.
That's what happens when you get these earpieces, man.
Yeah, I know. Oh, now I hear you. Okay.
Okay, good.
My fault. We good now?
I've been good.
Yeah.
I'm just
All right, cool. So let's transition into positioning yourself for promotion.
Daddy. No, okay, sorry. Yeah, let's talk about that.
All right, cool. All right. So a lot of times, like when it comes to promotion and asking for raises, right? What do you think would be the best process for that? Because now that becomes another problem where you don't want to have that conversation with your manager because it's like, all right, so I know we get this annual raise, we get this annual raise that I feel like, I've done the work. I feel like, I've paid my dues, and we still getting these raises that's not really for me, So how would you? So what would be your advice to navigating those conversations?
So I do those all the time, and I'll say a few things. Let's first demystify a couple different pieces, right? Before you even going to have that conversation. Beyond the fact of getting clear about how your organization pays, getting clear about that, a couple things you have to ask. When I share with people often is this. Often enough, the increase that you get at work is often a standard of living increase. It's a baseline number. It's related back to the inflation of the year. Usually inflation is like 1.7, 1.9. The raise is like 2.0. Some people 2.5, right? In addition to that, for every role, there's a range of pay. And for people at the top end of the pay, I've had to say to them, you're not going to see any really increase. And as people who are at the bottom, they might see an increase. But often enough, the increase is not really hinging on your performance. It's really just the standard of living increase standard, right? That they have discretion in giving. Managers have oftentimes have discretion. So that's one. You may not see a huge increase in a raise. You may see in a promotion, not so much a raise. In some places, it's not a standard of increase. It's a merit increase. And even when it's a merit, there's still a standard. Right? In the corporation I'm with now, it's a merit increase, but it's a base standard of 3%. Some people might get a little bit more, some people a little less. So you're not going to see huge traction in that way, generally, if you're just looking for a raise. So first, understanding that separation. If you're in a company that's a pay-for-performance company where they pay a bonus is more so tied to your performance, right? And then you need to understand how they determine bonus. Sometimes in certain companies, it's a discretionary bonus. There's no real true rhyme or reason. There's some, but there's not a lot. There's just, it's kind of in the air to a point. Negotiate your raise. A lot of times also, people wait till they have the conversation of here's what your raise is to say, I'm not happy about that. I'm sorry, it's already happened. If you are upset with changes because the change already occurred. So I say all the time, did you speak to your manager throughout the year? Oh, well, they never had a meeting with me. You're an adult. This is no longer the industrial age where you have to wait for a person for a conversation. Proactively say, I would like to understand how I'm performing and where I stand today. In effort to not be surprised at the end of the year, I want to know what I could do differently. Success for me looks like X. Success looks like at the end of the year getting a raise that looks like this. Make very clear your intentions. People are often afraid to say that to managers because they're afraid they're going to get fired, etc. Let me say this to you. There are a lot of laws and regulations as to why we can't just fire people. We don't just fire. We have to have real cause for
Facts.
it.
That's so true.
You have a right to work. That's the state that we're in. But even with the right to work, there's so many different regulations as to why you just don't fire a person, right? For very different reasons. So feel very strongly when you're having that check-in with your manager, and if your manager's not having a check-in with you quarterly, you call for that check-in. Say, haven't spoken in a while, just want to touch base and see how I'm doing, if that's aligned to that. Seeing that I am accomplishing my goals. Is there something else I should be thinking about? So really having those things proactively, making it very clear, right? Because I have managers who have great performing people who at the end say, I had the conversation, I thought it was going to be great, but they were so pissed off, I didn't realize they wanted more. Can we do something now? And I'm like, ship has already sailed, right? So get in front of them. Get in front of your manager. Make it clear your expectations. I really think I deserve more, and here's why. And make a business case for why you deserve more, not just because I am nice and you should like me and you like me a lot. No, what is your business reason? Here's how I add value. We had to do 10 things. I did 15. And here's how well I did them. I saved the company money this way. Really present some business reasons to justify that and make that clear when you're looking to get a raise. And similarly, for when you're looking for a promotion, you want to get clear about what do you need to do to be promoted. Right. Every place is different. Some places have very rigid rules as far as how that works. And some places kind of loosey-goosey where it kind of depends on your manager. So really get clear about this is a lot of this is just really so dependent on that conversation and that information that you share with that manager. It really is, and whether they take it up or not. And if you find your manager is not taking you seriously or taking it to the next step, have a skip level conversation. Eventually reach out. Just make it very clear, just want to touch base with you about how things are working at the company, things that I've seen, and then in that conversation share what you'd like to see. But often, if not always, I am sitting with people who are disgruntled or upset because they didn't make their expectations clear. And that's in life. We have to do a better job of communicating what we want and how we want it and why. So for raises, for promotions, all of those things being, get clear about what it is at that particular organization and how you can sit there and attend to it. But it's not just going to happen. I mean, it sometimes does, infrequent.
Right. So, I saw a comment said, DJ Stress said, the manager says, do this / take this and I'll get you more. I do it and then nothing but more workload.
So let me say this. Often enough, managers tell people these stories because they're afraid of having difficult conversations. Your manager may not always be the person who is the decision maker. Often enough. In certain organizations, that's at the very granular level. In a lot of organizations, it isn't. So get very clear about, okay, what are the steps that I need to take? And when you get that information from your manager that says you need to do X, Y, and Z to get the raise that you're asking for. Because you can't just say a raise, they'll give you a raise, right? You don't want to be ambiguous. You want to be
Get you a raise, yep.
Send that email. Thank you for meeting with me. Really appreciate the time. Just recapping what you shared. I understand that I have to do these things to achieve this thing. That way, when it comes to the end of the year and that's not what happens and it's not satisfied, you have something to walk in with, whether it be to the HR department or to the senior leadership, right? That you have some clear information stating that if you executed on these items, you would receive X. So really, CYA works here every single time, because often when people come and speak to this, I'm like, I don't have anything supporting this. And I speak to the manager, like, no, well, I said that, but I said it like this. Well, I said, if I did this, I could possibly try to see if. But the manager really says to the person, yeah, I'm going to do this for you. They don't always have that information. One, the decisions for how we're funded, that usually happens at a very high finance level. And they're 100% with a certain amount of money and trying to figure out how to disseminate it. So imagine if everybody's going asking the same thing to keep you happy and, you know, feeling good, they kind of just say what they'd like. So a lot of the issues that we find in corporations sit with our management, where they're not appropriately having the challenging conversations with you and being clear about what your experience is.
Powerful. Phew. I hope y'all was taking notes on that one, 100%. So, in speaking about managing a manager's personality, sometimes, let's be honest, you know, manager's personality, it may not be that great. It might be a little difficult, you know. Like for me personally, you know, I had a manager before who, man, she would cut me off every time I open my mouth, and you know, it pissed me off. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you, because every time I go talk, she would just So, and I realized that she would do that. It wasn't a personal thing. Like she would do that to everybody, but nobody would say a word. And I'm like, all right. So what I did was I pulled her into the room. I pulled her into a room. I said, listen, I said, one thing I noticed about, you know, when I speak, I said, you cut me off immediately. You don't let me get what I have to say out. I said, you know, as a human being, as you know, and as just an employee, that doesn't feel good. And she's like, oh, you know I do that. I'm sorry. She goes, you know, it's habit. She goes, it's not personal. I said, I know it's not personal. That's why I'm having this conversation with you like this. I said, but listen, I said, that has to change. I said, because it's uncomfortable for me to try to have a conversation with you or dialogue with you, and you keep cutting me off. I said, so we have to come up with a way that you have to not do that, or at least not do that so much to me. I said, especially to me, I said, because it's really making me uncomfortable, and I said, I want to have a great working relationship with you. I said, so how can we come up with a way that won't happen? And she said, oh, you know what? I have an idea. And now her mind starts to think, and she's like, you know what? If you hear me do that, she said, just put a finger up. Yeah. I was like, put a finger up. And she was like, that way I know that I'm doing it. She goes, I've been doing it so long. She goes, I even do it to my family. She goes, I've been doing it so long. That's just me. She said, but I recognize as a leader, I can't do that. I can't do that because it's going to make good employees like yourself uncomfortable. So I was just like, all right, you know what? Perfect. So now we started doing that. And, you know, of course, she is who she is. So she does it, you know, so she did it a little bit more, but she did it a lot less. And she brought me aside after that. And she goes, you know, I really appreciate you bringing this to my attention because nobody else really did. And it's something that I really did need to fix. So I had to really get an understanding of her, and she had to really get an understanding of me. And I had to try to manage her personality too, because, you know, she wasn't going to change 100%. But just me bringing it to her attention to just let her know that that was something that was just not okay. And it made me uncomfortable. But I went to her respectfully. That's one. And privately.
That's two.
And even though she would cut me off in public, I went to her privately because I said, she may not even realize that she's doing this. And lo and behold, she didn't even know. She knew, but she said, I didn't know that I was doing it so much to you and to everybody else. You know what I'm saying? So it's just really learning, as a manager has to learn their employees' personalities, you have to learn how to manage your manager's personality too. So, you know, I say all that to ask you, like, what, you have any thoughts about that?
So, a lot. I think that's a gift to have had a manager who was so willing and open to receive. A few things. I think that there are several different things that we employ to understand our style of how we work, how we communicate, how we receive information. And understanding your manager's style might be essential to your success, right? I think you were gifted in having a manager who was open to receiving information and feedback. I tell my team,
Right.
Just failure without feedback. So I'm constantly asking for feedback. What can I do better? I think there's a separation between manager and leader. They're not one and the same, but I require that my managers be leaders, right? They're not one and the same. And understanding as a manager, I'm here to remove roadblocks. I'm here to create space. I'm here to make sure that you have all the tools you need for your success. And many managers and unfortunate, I guess you could say, opportunities of having managers who were very supportive. And I had one was a Karen, literal Karen, as they coined today. But yeah, I did have to sit with that for a while and navigating with a person who is intentionally undermining or doing things in your way. And even after approaching respectfully and all the other pieces, still undermining you, I think that's where the challenge comes. So I don't know how many people here are dealing with or have dealt with difficult managers where this person is really at the helm of your raise, your promotion, your career growth in a company. And we know that statistics show that 80% of people leave organizations because of management. They don't necessarily tell you that, right? Because when they send the information and resignation, they're like, oh, career opportunity, I got a better job, more money. But often when you get under that, it's management more often than not. And so how do you navigate through that space when you're dealing with a challenging personality? You had the experience where you had a person who you were bright enough to offer them the empathy. And I think you start there, right? With offering the empathy that the person is operating from the best place they know how, and may just not be in the awareness of how they're being received. And that happens often. To really having that conversation, engaging to see their understanding and how they respond to that. I had one, it wasn't a manager, it was a colleague of mine where it was, we do the air thing. Whenever it was like, speak up more in meetings. So, you're not doing that, just do this. And so we had that as our thing to ensure that we were engaged. But I think that's a great example. What happens when you go in and speak to this manager, as you did, and that person is, what are you talking about? Well, I do this because I know, and so I'll give you opportunity to speak when it makes sense for you to speak, and then shut you down completely all the time. What do you do then? What happens when you're in that difficult space with that person? And I think that's where the big questions come. When you have a manager who's not working for you because they're not looking for your growth, they're not interested in your career development, not looking to showcase your talents, right? They take credit for your work. Seen that happen. I've suffered through some of that. How do you gauge that, right? So thinking through an example of where a person's taking credit for your work. This is where you got to get creative. So it was a unique opportunity to, one, never let them feel left out. Really letting them feel like they're engaged. And so I would do things like I would share this with the person, say, hey, thought about this great thing to do, and here's how we could do this. Want to share it with you, and I plan on sharing this with One Level Up, right? Because I shared that with you, and I'm telling you I'm going to take it a level up. Just not sure to do this, etc. And that's what I would do. So I would share it there, so she had it, right? But I also said that I was going to be speaking to her, sharing it One Level Up, and I would do that. And that's when I became even clearer that a lot of the information I was sharing before was not being credited to me in that way. And that person kind of got that hint. So there's ways around it. There's ways to appropriately address things in the chain without making that person feel slighted, where you do it professionally,
Right.
understanding your growth. So even in a case like yours where this person's cutting you off, and having that opportunity to say to them in the back, like, hey, I just wanted to call this to your attention. I realized that oftentimes when we're in meetings and I'm trying to share because I really have something to say, that you're cutting me off. And I know you have a great knowledge base, but I'd really like the opportunity to share some of what I've learned. I've learned so much from you. I've gotten to understand so much from you. I really want to showcase the talent, our team success. I really want to highlight just how much you've helped me grow in this role. And sometimes I just don't feel I have the opportunity to do that. And I find it's always great when you're giving that person praise. They tend to kind of like, oh, okay, to a point, right? To a point. And sometimes there and still you may have people who are just not there for your growth. And when you find that there's really no opportunity and all you're facing is roadblocks from this individual, you have to get from under that. You just have to. Because if you have a person who's really in your way and making every effort to step in front of you, you have to find a different role. You have to find a person that can support that growth. And it's on you. It's your career. It's your life. The onus is on you to step out and create that and find that. And that doesn't have to always be external. That could be internal. Looking for internal opportunities, right, that may exist. And speaking to other people within the group to understand that. There's always opportunity to speak confidentially to ER or the HR team as well. But it's not always, unfortunately, a great opportunity where a manager is open to. Or you're dealing with a micromanager and it's driving you crazy.
Right. Ooh, I hate those. My brother said networking and mentorship with other stakeholders within the organizations are important, and that's helped him out in that situation before too.
Yeah, you brought up a great point. So even in networking with mentors, the mentor is very different than the sponsor. So even being clear about that, giving me the opportunity just to speak on that for a few. A mentor is a person who you're going to share some of your development opportunities with. So if you've ever thought about SWOT, right, to do an analysis of your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, like really think about what those things are. You're sharing that with your mentor so that they can help you identify those things if you haven't, and help you develop and grow better in those ways. And so they're not always the persons to help propel you into the next job. For the reason, because they're like, oh, this person needs to grow, but let me lend you. Your sponsor, that's the person who is going to call your names in rooms where you're not. That's the person who you need them to see the highlights of you. And so being able to successfully understand the separation of those two is how you can gauge and better assess on how to use that relationship to help propel you forward. But yes, mentors in your organization, even external, and sponsors are really going to be great for your growth and getting out of some of those situations.
DJ Stress said, manager took credit, found out from people in meetings, but he couldn't explain it right. So he invited me into the next meeting, and I corrected everything and showcased that was the resource. I mean, that's amazing.
That's the example, and that's where that highlights that. There's some people who think just having the information is they weaponize information.
Yes.
And I speak to that for people who are managers and who are employees. I've encountered that too, where they weaponize information. Like, well, I know this and you don't. And really being able to understand how to make all of these pieces work for you to help propel your success is going to be essential. Navigating through the corporate arena or just jobs really is not necessarily the easiest thing. And some of it takes, some learning. And that's where the mentorship and advisement really just comes into play. But definitely align yourself to great people so you can see that. Because I think in DJ Stress's example, had he not had people in that space who really, went to bat for him or thought about him, being able to step in and do that, essential to having them understand his platform.
And the one thing that I want to call out, I didn't get a chance to call it out in the first hour, is even after you interview and follow up with the person that you interviewed with.
Yes.
Send emails, create that dialogue.
I send cards. I do the handwritten cards to
yes,
that I
you
interview
do.
with. I send that in.
Yes. It's
very different. I may follow up with an email just quickly overnight.
Just be sure.
In addition to that, I send a card. I usually get a whole note about, I received this beautiful card from you. We don't get those things anymore. So always try to do or find some way to differentiate, right?
I mean, we already know there's not many people like you, so I mean, we already know what it is. But, you know, just definitely, you know, make sure that you have that point of contact, and you keep up with that manager or that recruiter, so that you're always in the front of the mind right here. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's just something that I definitely wanted to point out, and also knowing how to take rejection.
Oh, yeah.
And because being in this field, you know, we can't take everybody, and we found some incredible people, but you know, there's only 1 or 2 jobs, right? So, knowing how to take that rejection, because I've gotten some emails back that were just kind of wild and crazy. I don't need this job anyway, and you know, just stuff like that, right? And it's just I've actually reached back out to people that I thought were amazing, and just by how they took the rejection the first time, when I had a new job opening, I reached out to them and said, hey, listen, you know what? It didn't work out the first time, but I think you'd be amazing for this particular role. Let's talk about it, and maybe we can get you an interview with this manager. Like I've personally done that, and I know hiring managers have done that. Just by your reply from the rejection, you know, I've gotten some amazing replies and some not so amazing of replies. And so a lot of times that goes a long way as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I say to people, put yourself in a position to say no, right? I heard
Yep.
that some years ago where, in my most recent experience, as I was migrating to this company from JP Morgan, I had 3 or 4 offers, and it was like fighting through my head trying to figure out which one I was going to choose. And even having walked away and saying no to some of those offers, I met some really great people while interviewing. And we kept in touch. And there's some of the people who said, I know we don't work together and we are not going to, but someday we will. And so it's really important to be mindful of not burning those bridges, keeping those connections, right, open, because as mentioned prior, it's not always a terrible reflection on you. As we said, a lot of what happens is cultural fit. And it's not personal to you. I know it feels personal because it's happening to you.
It's not.
But it's really not so much about you. Like, you know, it's really sometimes we're looking for a person, not just, you have the right skill sets. We know that you can do this work, but we're looking for a person who gel with the team in this way, right? I may have a team where, you know what, I need a person who is not just skilled in this way, but they're proactive, because the guys in the team, they really just do the work. And I want somebody who's innovative and, you know, really is going to add some life to this. And so I speak to you and I don't necessarily get that in the immediate. And so I'm trying to find that. So that may mean that it's a no for you, but it's really not so personal to you. And so oftentimes, if you respond inappropriately, now you just shot yourself in the foot. Now you just remove the opportunity to really sit here and have and go forward. I literally today had to terminate a person. For reasons being, not terrible reasons, but there was cause. And this person proceeded and, you know, cursed and said some things about Black females and et cetera. And that, you know, just like randomly said, and that was like, noted, not hireable, right? I had to change that in the system. You're not going to work here anymore. So be very mindful of the connections you're creating and how you want to be viewed. You may not like them or like what happened, but let people walk away with a feeling of you that's really good. Let them come calling you. Let them come knocking at your door, and leave that space.
Yep.
Away.
So it says, what are some soft skills? What are some soft skills needed to be a manager? I mean, for me, one of the top soft skills to me to be a manager is compassion. It's compassion and understanding, being a team player as well, because a lot of times managers tend to dictate and they won't be with you in the trenches, right? So I like a manager that is going to be in the trenches with me. You know what I'm saying? And that's not so much of a dictator, right? You know, somebody that leads by example, you know, so, but that compassion piece for me, I think is big, because you're dealing with people. And when you're in the business of people, you have to be compassionate. And I'm not saying be walked over, obviously, but and not knowing when to be stern, or not knowing when to write somebody up, or to you know, to discipline somebody, but to have that understanding and compassion, you know, to me, is essential for a manager. And to be available, always having that open door policy to be able to dialogue and to speak, and that you're not above that. Because many times we have managers who feel like they're above, you know, having conversation and dialogue and an open door policy. And it's just, you know, to me, that doesn't make for a good, I'll say, leader. You know, there are a lot of managers, but there's not many good leaders. So to me, to be a leader, you know, you got to have compassion and understanding, and you got to be a team player and be in the trenches with your employees. You know, so that's something to me that I always looked at for leaders in the business to have. So I mean, that's my 2 cents.
I will say it loudly and often and always: a manager is not a leader.
Right.
And that means
two different things.
Manager should be a leader. Manager's not always a leader.
Yep.
When I speak to my people leaders, I call them that for reasons, because I'm calling on them to do just that. I tell them often there's 2 responsibilities: you manage the work, you develop people. 2 different.
Yes.
Right. And often enough, what I find is that they're so bogged into managing the work and getting the work done that they give very little thought to developing people. And that's where you get lost. I want to work and hire people that work for me and empower them to do the work, right? So I think it's important that our managers develop leadership qualities. I think it's important that they're not asking people to do anything that they wouldn't do themselves.
Yep.
I think Terrence speaks of compassion. I speak to probably the same thing, but for me, it's empathy. It's emotional intelligence. It's understanding and operating from a space that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have.
Yep.
And if I start with the idea that what you're delivering for me, you're doing the best you can, it leads me to try to understand, why is it that your best doesn't feel like the best that I would require, right? So as an example, I have to ask myself a question as a manager to say, did I empower you? Did I give you all the tools that you needed? Are you an individual who needs deadlines, who needs further information? And am I providing you what you need to be successful? Because that's where leadership comes in. It really comes to ensure that I am questioning myself first before coming to you. But I do have a responsibility to hold you accountable, to show up as the best self that you can be if I'm noticing that you're not doing so. So that takes understanding, and that's where that empathy comes in, where I'm literally walking into these conversations to say, what happened here? Walk me through what happened. Share with me, what did you need that you didn't get? What can I do differently? How can I show up for you? And when I hear it and understand that, then I can hold you accountable to, I received that and I will take that. Or in fact, you may not have provided that. So here's what I require of you. Here's what I'm not seeing. And here's what I could do to help you be better, right? Because coaching shouldn't just happen when we're doing a corrective action. That should be happening through the life cycle of your employment period.
Yes.
So for a manager, your soft skill, the main one would be empathy. It's really truly understanding your employee. First, what they need. Every person's different, and being able to flex your leadership style and your communication style. I'm a director, which means that I am not really quickly with the fuzzy. I just really want to get to the point and get it done. I don't need an entire email with a ton of information. I need the facts. I need what I need now to get it done. But I understand that not all my employees work that way. I have one in particular who will tell me the entire story. So I know that's that person, that's their style.
Yes.
So I flex to meet their style to understand what they're delivering for me. But I also share with them that this is where I'm operating from. So communication, clarity, empathy, some of the key things that you need as far as the soft skills required to manage the work and develop the people.
Perfect. And just, I know I touched on it a little bit in the first part, but when it comes to with telling your story, or I'm not sure if it's the second part, but telling your story.
Okay.
When you're in an interview, and when somebody says, "Tell me about yourself,"
yes,
that is your opportunity to truthfully tell them about yourself. Tell them about your experience. Tell them about your education, your hard skills, your soft skills, and some personal qualities.
Well,
some personal.
Let's make sure we're clear about that, right?
Some.
highlight
Yes.
pieces that are not necessarily on your resume, but pieces that speak very well of you, and often
Right.
speak about where you've grown, right? I
Yes.
don't necessarily do this so well. However, I have learned, and this is now how I do this. So this is what I got from that. Really simple,
Right.
but you got to plan ahead. You don't just go in and just like, you don't want to sit in an interview doing that. I'm gonna probably dismissed you from that moment. So coming
Right.
back to that, good point. Good point.
Right. And tell me about yourself doesn't mean, yo, I love LeBron James. You know, I love going on vacation to California. I love long romantic walks to the refrigerator. Like that's not.
I don't know that just an interview I've been in where they've not walked away from understanding that Michael Jordan is pretty much my dad.
Yeah, I know.
Because that's
you know
what it is though. I think you always want to add that personal touch in there, where that's that thing that they remember, so to speak, to a point. Like that's she right, and so you want them to remember all the great things. But I oftentimes, because it's my dad.
Yeah, tell me, but for me, tell me about yourself isn't cold for just tell me about all of your personal likes and all of this stuff. Like that's not really what it's about. That's your opportunity to give me your 30-second elevator pitch about yourself. Take advantage of it.
But I
take advantage of it.
Recruiters too, though, Terrence, because I hold my recruiters really accountable in being mindful of how they ask questions and what questions they ask, all at the same time, right? Because there is a responsibility to ask for what you're looking to receive at the very same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clear, and I've had to make it clear, like it's a very broad question. Can you help point me in the direction of what you're exactly looking for? Because we have this thing where we judge people on their actions, but we judge ourselves on our intentions. So if your intention is to get particular information from me, right, but your actions suggest that you're just asking broadly, then you don't get to walk away with this idea that I didn't answer your question because I didn't give you what you wanted when you weren't clear in your ask. So I think there's that too. And I know this is not for the folks.
It's that, but also there's an assumption on the hiring managers or the recruiters actually that Now, when I ask you or say tell me about yourself, that you already know I don't want to hear about I love the beach or whatever the case is. Just making an example. You know what I'm saying?
Real. I've been in many interviews and that's the question. They want to know more about the person. Like, what do you do in your spare time? They want to hear a little bit more about that. So, I mean, out of the
interviews I've been on, that was about 5% of them. No, like 95% of them was like, nah, bro.
Every single one I've gotten asked questions, just wanting to know, well, tell me more about yourself. Like, what do you do? What do we, and I've asked that question to say, well, I'm happy to share with you. Tell me a little bit more about what you're looking to understand about me. It's definitely okay. Okay, it's required that you go in there asking questions. One, and two, there's no issue with asking for clarity. In fact, you should.
Absolutely.
Be very, very clear about what you're answering or what you're responding to, because you don't want to be held accountable for what you didn't learn and what you didn't share.
Right. And please come to interviews with questions to ask the interviewer, please. But look, truthfully speaking, we got about five minutes left to this part 2. Time flies. So if there's any kind of quick questions that you guys have that you want to ask us really quickly, if we could, answer those really fast, because 5 minutes goes by pretty quickly.
While you're doing that and come with the questions really quick, I think I've gotten this a lot, so I'm going to just respond to it here. That a lot of people say to me, I don't know what profession I want to be in, I don't know where to go, and trying to find your purpose and what that looks like. Really think about what you do most for most people is really a good start. Asking qualified individuals who know you well, but describing words, like call a person, say, give me 5 words that best describe me from your perspective. Not everybody, qualified people who know you well enough to ask that question.
Right.
If you're looking to understand your personality of how you work, there's a really great website called 16 Personalities. So the number 16 personalities, where you can do an assessment, and that really helps you understand a little bit more about yourself. So why don't you just share that broadly?
How do you keep up to date on technology outside of work?
You do that for your career development. You take courses.
Yeah.
You see things on LinkedIn. You search the internet, because you can't just simply rely on your job to have those courses on, like, a lot of big companies have, universities or whatever sites where they have learnings attached to Harvard, etc. But it's relying on you. It's your career. It's in your hands. Having a conversation with your manager is on you. If they're not having it with you, go ask for that conversation. Be bold, be courageous in that way, as well as look to what's relevant in your particular field, your industry, and stay close to understanding what that is, what's moving. I try to stay close to the laws that are changing, the trends that are changing. So that's on you. I also aligning to particular groups that may be aligned to your career path as well. You can get a lot of information there.
Also, check out a site called General Assembly. Sometimes they have free webinars and free Zooms that, you know, just kind of tailor towards, it could be social media, it could be technology, but I know, especially during this time, you know, they've been doing, like, every Friday, I think that they've been doing just different conference calls and webinars on certain things on technology and in technology, excuse me. So check out General Assembly.
Universities do a lot of that as well. Some of the universities will do a lot of free courses online also. So really get yourself out there. And that's also helpful in network. LinkedIn, joining different groups on LinkedIn, you'll hear a lot about different opportunities. A lot of them are free seminars, some are a few dollars, but really stay connected. Again, that network will equate to your network. You have a great network, you spend less money. You have a great network, they plug you into a lot of places. You get to meet more people. So really think about being intentional about the network that you're creating around you.
Yes. Yep. So I just pinned DJ Stretches. I just pinned that there. So CFA Joe, my boy Joe said, agreed, make your professional development a study. Shout out to Joe. I'm going to have him on Thursday, and we're going to get into everything money management. So that's going to be an amazing conversation too. So look, we got about less than 2 minutes, man. So I just really want to just say, you know, we started this on a late night conversation, just like, yo, you know, what can we do to kind of push the culture forward? And we decided to do this Zoom for 2 hours. We both work, and we decided to just give this joint for free, man. And because we both care about the community, and we both care about our people. And so I just want to salute to you, Stauna. You're amazing. You're a queen. I appreciate you always for being able and available to doing things like this. I don't take it lightly, you know, so I just wanted to say salute to you. Thank you very much. You're a queen of the highest order. And I really do appreciate you. You know, I was just going to do a cheers since we're doing a sip and learn. Cheers to you. Cheers to you. And I know that this is not going to be the last one. I know that we're going to get on a call and talk about something, and then we're going to be like, yo, we got to take it to live again and do it. I don't know what it's going to be, but I do know it's probably going to be something. So definitely cheers to you. I appreciate everybody that has stopped through here and has participated in this Conversations of the Heart, Sip and Learn edition, surrounded by career readiness. We got about 30 seconds.